Hello and welcome to AI at Work. It's been a while since I've done a video, and so I thought I would share a couple of workflows with you today. I've been hosting a lot of workshops for PR agencies, and they have some amazing use cases that are really great for automation. If you're answering RFPs manually, then you're going to want to stick around for workflow number 1. And if you are doing a lot of coverage analysis or creating case studies by hand, well, then you want to stick around for workflow number 2. So let's get into it. We're going to start this workflow by taking a look at some of the files I have saved in my Google Drive. So let's pretend that I am the Northline PR agency. And what you're looking at here is a folder where I have saved some of the files that I need to make this automation work. So right away, I have a description of my PR agency's profile. I've also downloaded a win-loss analysis from our CRM. And I've also created what I call an RFP scoring rubric. And so now I have all the pieces I need to build myself an automation that will help me evaluate and answer RFPs. So the first thing I wanted to look at is the RFP scoring rubric that I've created. So you can see here I have a couple of different dimensions like ICP fit, the capability match, budget alignment, and so on. And I've weighted them all a little bit differently. And then these are blank. These are the parts that the AI will fill in for me. And then the next thing I have is the Northline PR bio. This has got the about us, what we believe, our target audience, and so on. So you can see a bit of information there about my fictitious agency. And then finally, the win-loss analysis, which I have downloaded from my CRM. Obviously, this is all fake information. If you were going to do this, you would pull real information down from your CRM. Anonymized, of course, before you put it back into the AI. So then now that I have all of my files, the next part to do is build inside of your large language model of choice. So for this one, I'm going to use ChatGPT, but you could just as easily use Claude or Gemini. And for this one, I created a folder or a project here called PR Council RFP Evaluator. And then inside this, I'm going to start the workflow. So the first thing I'm going to ask it to do is, using the Northline agency profile and scoring rubric, evaluate this RFP. So now you can see I've popped in all the different files that we looked at that are in my folder, and I also attached the RFP that I have received. So we'll send that off to ChatGPT and it will read through everything. Okay, so it made a pretty quick judgment based on the RFP, and it says no bid, low priority. And the reasoning is that this RFP is heavily focused on consumer PR, influencer marketing, entertainment partnerships, etc., etc. And then it goes into more detail. You can see it's used my scoring rubric here, and it's called out some of the particulars, and then some key misalignments, staffing expectations, and so on. What's happened here is I really quickly have been able to evaluate whether or not it's worth spending the time on this RFP. If the answer had come back and said, yes, this is a really good opportunity, well, then I could have kept working with ChatGPT to ask it to start answering the RFP for me using an answer bank that I would have preloaded previously. So really simple workflow, saves you a ton of time. So hopefully you can try it out and let me know in the comments if you do, how it goes for you. Okay, so now it's time for workflow number 2. And this one is all about doing an analysis of coverage for a client and then turning that coverage into other types of content, including a case study and credentials. So let's take a look at the folder we have set up here. So again, I've preloaded this with the things that we need to make the workflow run efficiently. So right now I pre-built a prompt, which we'll look at in a second. I have a case study template that I follow. I also have our tone and style guide, which informs how that case study will sound. And then I have a couple of folders here that I have created. This is where the final files will land when they're created. And then I've also pulled some coverage for the client in question. So now let's take a quick look at the prompt. It's quite extensive because we're asking the AI to do a lot of different things. I'm telling it to act like a senior PR strategist and case study writer. And then the task is to turn raw media coverage, campaign details, and supporting materials into these 4 items. We want a media coverage intelligence report, a case study, a credential summary, and a future media opportunities and pitch strategy document. Now, of course, you might want different things, so you could just update your outputs based on your use case. Then I'm giving it some core rules like do not invent facts, metrics, or quotes. If the information is missing, write around it rather than guessing, and a few others. And then I outline each of the steps. And so what I want it to do for each part of this process. So the first step is the coverage research. So for this one, I want it to research and compile all of the relevant coverage. And the client in this case is a company called Talc. And then I want it to list all these different things, including the outlet, the reporter, the headline, and so on. Then I want it to compile a coverage intelligence report and to analyze things like recurring narratives and themes, positioning, and so on. Step 3, this is when we move into the case study and credentials. So once it's done the analysis, now we're ready to create some content. So using the template we looked at earlier, turn this into a polished case study. And then step 4 is the future pitch development. So generating some ideas for what we might do next time. So this becomes a cycle that we can run every month or so. All right, so let's see it in action. For this particular use case, I am going to use Claude Cowork. And the reason for that is Cowork has the ability to conduct multiple work streams at once. And it also right now is the only platform that can drop finished files into a folder for you. So let's have a look at this in action. So I've toggled over to my version of Cowork, and you can see that I've actually already run this, but I'm going to queue this up so you can see what it will look like. And then given that Cowork takes a really long time to work, we'll go back to the one I ran previously so you can see the outputs. So now we have the prompt inside of Cowork. We also need to tell it what folder to work in. So now you can see that I've selected the folder that we were looking at previously. Okay, so Cowork has its instructions, it's starting to boot up, and you can see it's thinking about this task, it's loading its tools, and as it does this, you can see it's starting to formulate a plan. So up here in the right-hand side, we can see Cowork is evaluating my prompt, plus everything that's in the folder, and then thinking through, these are all the different steps it needs to go through to get to that finished outcome. So you can see here, the first thing it's going to do is read the source files. Then it's going to research the media coverage, build the intelligence analysis, then write the case study, develop the future pitch, and finally compile all the deliverables into a final file. And then down here, it's pulling everything from the folder that it will be referencing. And then if I had told it to access other platforms, as you can see here, I gave it access to my folder in Google Drive. Now it's noting I need to access this platform to complete this task. And so as you can see, it's going through and thinking on all of this. So you do need to sit here and watch it in those first couple of rounds so that you can click allow when it does get stuck or it needs your approval to keep moving forward. So let's pop over and take a look at the finished program we ran in Cowork. Okay, here is the finished Cowork workflow. And you can see here, it's given us a quick summary. And then it's also given us access to a document with the analysis that we could look at here, or it is already saved in the folder we told it to save into. But you can see here we have our media coverage package, and it's really extensive. And this would have taken a lot of time to compile manually. So you can see we have our intelligence report with our coverage overview. Then we have our placement analysis with the outlet plus the date. And then a lot of detail. We've got key client messages. It's even pulled out some of the quotes, which are amazing. And it's done the same analysis for each item that it discovered as part of its research. So really handy report here. Now, if we wanted to see what this looks like when we're back in the Google folder, we can jump over there now. So here we are back in the Google folder, and you can see this is the coverage report right here that would look exactly the same as what we were looking at in Cowork just a moment ago. But we also asked it for the case study and the credentials, and it has popped both of those here into this folder. Let's open it up and take a look at what it created for us. We have our case study and credential summary. It's built out an infographic-esque look and feel to this, which is nice and scannable. So we have a summary of the placements and the feature coverage, years celebrated. Then we have a coverage log, again, really scannable. Then we have more coverage detail if someone wanted to read into this and get more of an insight into what this program involved. If we keep scrolling down, then we find the credential summary where we've got the clients listed, the brief with a little bit of detail, what was delivered, and the reach at a glance with some key proof points. So again, this would take a really long time to compile if you were doing it manually, and we did this in just a couple of minutes. So again, hopefully another helpful use case for your agency work. Well, that's it for today. I hope you found these workflows helpful and you're excited to try them out at your own agency. I'd love to hear how it goes, so leave a comment below and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of the AI at Work videos. We'll see you next time.